Pia, Tia, Sangha, Mipa,
Sia. 妹妹ဖေဖေနေကောင်းပါစေဖိုးဖိုးဖွားဖွားနေကောင်းပါစေအကုန်လုံးနေကောင်းပါစေ
လူကြီးတွေနဲ့ခဏစကားပြောချင်ပါတယ်ရှင်
Growing up, you taught us that being Burmese meant being Theravada Buddhist. You described Burma as a land where monks protested military injustice, where young people gathered in the sacred grounds of Shwedagon Pagoda in the name of revolution. You can still hear the voices of university students demanding democracy as clearly as their screams when they were gunned down. You can recall the faces of gilded Buddha statues as vividly as those of soldiers patrolling streets stained with blood.
You left Burma to pursue your own dreams and to build new lives in a place where your children could pursue theirs. In America, you faced new struggles in places that made you feel unwelcome, against people who thought lowly of our religion and culture and pressured you to assimilate. Thank you for enduring in the face of intolerance and indignity to provide for us. Thank you for trying to make sure we had a strong sense of identity when it must have felt like the future of our Burmese-ness rested entirely on your shoulders.
We are grateful that you taught us to respect our elders, uphold our traditions, and learn our history. We rarely saw our people in American media, and we were often ignored and even looked down upon by other Asian Americans. We felt proud to be Buddhist when our families donated to American Burmese monasteries, helped host Injan celebrations, and organized relief efforts for Cyclone Nargis. We felt proud to be Burmese when we learned about Aung San Suu Kyi and the 1988 uprising in Burma.
We would never claim to have lived through what you've experienced. We also dream of a liberated Burma. We are who we are because of you and your sacrifices.
But that does not mean we will always agree with you.
We know everyone has suffered under the Burmese military dictatorship, but after seeing so much racial injustice in America, we wonder if everyone has suffered equally. The Burma of your childhood and young adult years remains dear to you, but it was a country that was also governed by an ethnic and religious hierarchy. Despite some progress, it still is. At the top of the hierarchy are Burma Buddhists, who make up the vast majority of Burma. They too suffered horribly under the merciless heel of the junta, but they were never persecuted merely for being Burma or Buddhists.
In August of this year, a group called the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army attacked police posts at an army base in Rakhine State, claiming to fight for the Rohingya, an ethnic Muslim minority living in western Burma. They killed and injured over a dozen officers. There have also been claims that ARSA has committed mass murder of civilian Hindu villages. Despite fighting in the name of the Rohingya, their actions have more so indirectly harmed this stateless people. Burmese security forces responded with a bloody crackdown that left over 1,000 Rohingya dead. The elderly have been beaten, women and girls gang raped, children beheaded, and newborn infants drowned. Over 400,000 Rohingya refugees have fled the country in the past few weeks to escape this violence. The United Nations has declared this to be a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. Furthermore, around 30,000 Rakhine Hindus and Buddhists were also gravely injured and displaced.
There has indeed been misleading and irresponsible journalism by the international media. We are also not in Rakhine to personally witness these awful events. Yet, we are still hesitant to also trust the official statements from a censored Burmese press and a military that has proven to have little regard for human rights in the past.
Our online and personal interactions have shown us that not many Burmese Buddhists express sympathy towards the Rohingya, even as fellow human beings. We hear Burmese and Burmese Americans, who are also not currently in Rakhine State, saying that the Rohingya have been burning down their own homes to gain international sympathy. Some believe the other ethnic Rakhine people are outnumbered by the Rohingya, and outside news sources are biased towards them. but it is difficult for us to wholly discredit organizations like the BBC, who have thoughtfully and sympathetically reported on Burma and Aung San Suu Kyi for decades.
Prior to transitioning into a quasi-civilian democracy in 2015, many in Burma tended to be untrusting of local news since it was heavily censored and altered by the military regime. Thus, many became used to relying on foreign news sources and prioritizing word of mouth as a better method to circulate information within Burma. While such press censorships have thus been relaxed, national news networks remain centralized. Internet freedoms have increased, but these are also monitored by the military. In recent years, a common narrative of public opinion has emerged on Burmese social media. This has also been influenced by the military and small groups of ultra-nationalist Buddhist monks, both of whom seek to stoke Islamophobic fears. The Rohingya have been dehumanized online in Burma as illegal Bengali immigrants, terrorists who breed like animals and convert Buddhist women in Rakhine State. Not everyone believes these things, but just like in any part of the world, mob mentality can develop from more extreme prejudices linked with patriotism. Elsewhere in Burma, Muslim citizens, many whom have lived alongside Buddhists for generations, have even suffered attacks on their homes, mosques, and businesses from anti-Muslim mobs in the past. There are Burmese people who believe that the Rohingya's presence in Burma risks the rise of Islamic fundamentalism in Rakhine State and threatens our Buddhist heritage.
We understand the importance Theravada Buddhism has to Burma. It united us under a British rule, and it was the culture our ancestors wanted to rekindle and protect after being oppressed by their colonizers. It is part of the reason Burmese people are taught to prize the values of truth, generosity, and charity.
We do not approve of any terrorist act, but we still question the likelihood of Buddhism being overrun by radical Islam. Buddhism has been the predominant religion in Burma for centuries and has existed with other faiths, including Islam. Buddhism is also protected specifically in the Burmese constitution above other religions. It is the religion of the most powerful and influential people in Burma. Most generals, police, politicians, activists, and business leaders are Buddhists.
We know you are concerned for the future of Burmese Buddhism. We are too, because we believe that what is happening now will jeopardize Buddhism far more than anything else, and we did not develop these opinions overnight.
From a young age, we were taught about compassion, nonviolence, mindfulness, and the dangers of pride, yet also reminded of our religion's superiority to other faiths, Islam, Christianity, and even other branches of Buddhism. We were told that our Buddhism is the closest to what the Buddha actually taught. But today, our Buddhism has become the face of inhumanity to the rest of the world.
Buddhism teaches us to have compassion for all living creatures, yet we have seen footage of monks who once faced death in quiet protest against riot police, espousing hate speech against the Rohingya and other Muslims. We have read that some leaders of the 88 uprising against the military are now standing with the same military's action in Rakhine. We have watched Aung San Suu Kyi minimize the gravity of this crisis and remain complicit in Burma's systematic erasure of the Rohingya.
In all his lifetimes, Buddha never used violence to promote his teachings, even when others used violence against him. He never asked his followers to use violence, not even to protect Buddhism. He warned against extreme states of anger and delusion. He discouraged blind faith in material icons, and he most certainly did not preach in favor of idolizing politicians. So when we see Buddhists using violence, promoting violence, and staying silent in the face of violence against another religious group, we feel we must speak up.
Yet, we are discouraged by our elders from speaking on this issue. We are told not to question men preaching racism and Islamophobia simply because they have shaved heads and wear the saffron robe. We are told to value a piece of cloth over the safety and empathy for human lives. However, just because someone wears the monk's uniform does not automatically make their actions in line with the Buddha's teachings.
We have noticed that anti-Muslim and anti-Rohingya sentiments carry on in our American Burmese communities. Even people who do not uphold these prejudices rarely speak up or try to challenge the racist anti-Muslim views of others. When we try to argue otherwise, our views are discounted on the grounds that we are young, misguided, or speaking from a position of privilege. we are told that our opinions have little value because we do not live in Burma.
The current situation is frustrating for many Burmese people. You believe the international news coverage on the Rohingya crisis is an uninformed attack on Burmese society. You stand with Aung San Suu Kyi because of all she has done to make Burma's oppression under the dictatorship visible to the world, and for the many years of house arrest she endured to oppose the junta. You see her as receiving unfair criticism while in a complex situation, since she and her party do not control the military and the global media misrepresents how much power she actually has.
Rakhine State is the poorest in Burma. You think the world is ignoring the strife of native Rakhine Buddhists, the displacement of which has received little attention. Other indigenous peoples in Burma, such as the Karen, Kachin, Shan, Chin, Hmong, and so many more, have long suffered as ethnic minorities. Burmese Indians and Burmese Chinese have also faced their own racism.
All these issues, and the persecution of the Rohingya, have existed for decades, along with Burma's brutal civil wars, high poverty, and exploitation by other nations.
Please understand that just because the Rohingya are receiving widespread visibility does not mean that their situation is improving over that of others. Unlike the official government-recognized ethnic races, they are denied citizenship and the right to identify themselves in the way they choose. They have been confined to squalid camps in Rakhine State with very limited access to aid. They have been escaping the violence on foot and in overcrowded boats and are being poorly received by those in other countries.
You may not think of the Rohingya as your people in the same way you might think of those who are ethnically Burman or Rakhine or Shan or Mun, but could you not recognize them as fellow humans who want to live free from murderous state oppression? Do you not remember that this military is the same military that beat, humiliated, and brutally killed dissenting monks in Burma just 10 years ago?
If the army continues to attack without differentiating militants from innocent villagers, we worry that there will never be any peace in Burma. And while we may not live in Burma, these events still affect our communities.
Now, when we go to Pengjiang, which are meant to be peaceful places of community, we wonder if we are in the company of those who harbor anti-Muslim views. We do not want to keep distancing ourselves from Burmese people of different faiths and ethnicities in the US. If we remain divided along ethnic and religious lines, there will never be true unity or understanding.
Growing up here means that people of every race and religion have been a fundamental part of our lives. They are our friends, roommates, co-workers, and partners. They are our family. Today, we're scared for our Muslim siblings alongside our Christian, Hindu, and Buddhist ones in Burma.
You are immigrants. We hear how many in our community speak about the Rohingya, that people who do not follow the dominant culture of the country should get out. Do you not find this similar to what white supremacists say about immigrants and people of color in America? Burma may have the right to defend against militants, but the thousands of Rohingya who comprise this mass exodus have been defenseless men, women, and children.
As one generation of Burmese Americans to the generation who raised us, who renewed their Buddhist values in their children, we want to say that this violence against the Rohingya, other Muslims, and ethnic minorities of all faiths in Burma will not be done in our name. If anything is threatening Buddhism itself, it is the speech and actions of those who seek to elevate it by suppressing other people and religions.
We condemn any acts of terror that may have harmed innocent Rakhine peoples, and this includes the war crimes and human rights abuses committed by the Burmese military and its generals against the Rohingya. We believe as Buddhists, we must denounce this violence against the Rohingya and those who perpetuate it, including any monks and political activists. This is the Buddhism you taught us first, and the Buddhism we aim to keep following, even if we can no longer look up to some people we once admired as heroes. We express our metta or loving kindness to the Rohingya and all victims of such inhumanity. May they all be free from suffering and live to also raise their children to be well, happy, and peaceful.
Our Buddhism is meant to liberate, not oppress. Our Buddhism is not fearful. Our Buddhism is not prejudice. Our Buddhism is not passive.